Hello everyone and welcome to the new session of the lecture series. And today's topic is respiration in plants. So this lecture is completely NCERT based and this is the continuation of the previous lecture. So now we were discussing about the aerobic respiration. So aerobic respiration, have three parts. First is glycolysis. So in glycolysis, what happens? There is conversion of the glucose molecule into two molecules of pyruvic acid, which is a 3-carbon compound. And glycolysis takes place in the cytosol or cytoplasm of the cell. Alright. Next step of aerobic respiration is the Krebs cycle. Alright. So pyruvic acid, or you can say pyruvate, which is produced during glycolysis, it is first converted into acetyl coenzyme A, which is a 2-carbon compound. Carbon dioxide is released here. Alright, and this acetyl coenzyme A then enters the Krebs cycle. Enters the Krebs cycle. Pyruvic acid or pyruvate cannot directly enter the Krebs cycle. So first, there is oxidative decarboxylation of the pyruvic acid. Alright? And pyruvic acid is converted into acetyl coenzyme A and then it enters the Krebs cycle. And where does Krebs cycle takes place? It takes place in the matrix of the mitochondria. Means a fluid present within the mitochondria. And what does matrix contains? It contains all the enzymes and the cofactors which are required for the biosynthetic reactions or the biosynthetic pathway. So today we'll be focusing on the oxidative phosphorylation. Alright, we'll be discussing about the electron transport system or the electron transport chain here, and we will be discussing about the terminal oxidation. Alright, so oxidative phosphorylation is the formation of the ATP, and it takes place in the inner mitochondrial membrane. So now let's start with the components of the oxidative phosphorylation now. We'll be discussing about this process in detail now. So first component is the electron transport chain. Second one is the terminal oxidation. Alright. And then we have the chemiosmosis. So this theory explains the generation or formation of ATP. How ATP are produced. So let's start with the oxidative phosphorylation. So oxidative phosphorylation is a process that harnesses the reduction of the oxygen. You can underline this one. That harnesses the reduction of the oxygen to produce energy-rich compounds such as adenosine triphosphate. Alright. So reduction of oxygen. So oxygen, we will see in the lecture ahead that oxygen acts as the acceptor of protons and electrons. Alright. And it is converted into water. Molecular oxygen accepts protons and electrons, and it is converted into water. Alright, and during this process ATP is also generated. So now what happens during oxidative phosphorylation? There is a downhill transfer of electrons. So downhill transfer means transfer of electrons from a molecule with a molecule with lower reduction potential transfers the electron to a molecule with higher reduction potential. Okay, or you can also say from lower redox potential. Okay, from lower redox potential to higher redox potential. Alright, so there is a downhill transfer of electrons along the electron transport chain. Okay, and this creates a proton gradient. This transfer of electrons creates a proton gradient across the mitochondrial inner membrane. Alright, so the proton gradient that is created during oxidative phosphorylation is, okay, what happens? The energy of the oxidation reduction reaction. So during electron transport, okay, or in electron transport chain, there is oxidation reduction reactions are going on. Oxidation and reduction reactions are going on. One molecule is oxidized whereas other molecule is reduced, which accepts the electron. Okay, oxidation is loss of electrons and reduction is gain of electrons. So the energy of oxidation reduction reaction, okay, this is important, is utilized for the generation of the proton gradient. Okay, so this is what is happening in oxidative phosphorylation. So that's why it is also called oxidative phosphorylation. Alright, so now the proton gradient is created due to downhill transfer of electrons. Now the breakdown of the proton gradient. Okay, the breakdown of the proton gradient leads to the generation of ATP. We will see, okay, we will talk about this in detail, alright, when we will talk about the electron transport chain and terminal oxidation. Now, another thing to remember is that ATP synthase, okay, also known as the complex 5. Alright, so electron transport chain, okay, consists of 4 complex. Okay, so these 4 complex are present in the inner mitochondrial membrane. Alright, these are present in the inner mitochondrial membrane. Okay, and the 5th complex. Okay, 5th complex, okay, is referred to as the ATP synthase. And this ATP synthase is involved in ATP generation. Okay, so ATP synthase is known as the complex 5 of the electron transport chain. Okay, and it acts as a channel through which protons flow back to the mitochondrial matrix. Okay, and this generates energy to synthesize or generate ATP, which is used in various cellular processes like DNA and RNA synthesis, okay, transcription and replication. Okay, replication is DNA synthesis, transcription is RNA synthesis. Alright, which other process ATP can be used, or which cellular processes? Intracellular signaling. Okay, intracellular signaling. ATP can also be used for the active transport of molecules. Active transport means, or active means when energy is required. Okay, in active processes require ATP or energy, and ATP or energy is also required for muscle contraction. Okay, so these are the various processes where ATP is utilized. Okay, so now let's study about all these points in detail now. Okay, first let's talk about the electron transport chain. Now the electron transport chain, what is electron transport chain? It consists of a series of protein complexes, all right, and electron carriers. So there are protein complexes and electron carriers, okay, which are present or embedded within the inner mitochondrial membrane. That's why oxidative phosphorylation takes place in the inner mitochondrial membrane. And these complexes and carriers facilitate the downhill transfer of the electrons. Okay, and when there is downhill transfer of electrons, proton gradient is created across the mitochondrial membrane, across the inner mitochondrial membrane. Alright, so during the sequential transfer of electrons, a proton gradient is generated that drives the synthesis of ATP. Okay, so now this you have to remember again, this is an important point. Release and utilization of the energy stored in the NADH and FADH2, alright, is utilized in, okay, is utilized. The energy released from the NADH and FADH2 is utilized for the generation of the proton gradient in electron transport chain. Alright, so NADH and FADH2, these are reduced coenzyme. Both of these are reduced coenzyme, and these coenzymes are again oxidized, okay, in the electron transport chain, and the energy released by the release of the electrons and the downhill transfer of the electrons are utilized for the generation of the proton gradient. Alright, now again this is accomplished, means the generation of the proton gradient is achieved, okay, when the reduced coenzymes, okay, are oxidized through the electron transport system, and the electrons are passed on to the oxygen, okay, resulting in the formation of water. So this is known as terminal oxidation. Okay, so what is terminal oxidation? The electrons are finally, and the protons, electrons and protons are finally transferred to molecular oxygen, okay, transferred to molecular oxygen, and it results in the formation of water. So this is a final step of oxidative phosphorylation. This is the final step or the terminal step, okay, and leads to the formation of the water. That's why it is also known as terminal oxidation. Now there are two types of carriers in electron transport chain. Electron transport chain, we know, consists of protein complexes and electron carriers. So there are two types of carriers. First is hydrogen carriers. An example is flavin adenine dinucleotide, FAD, which is again a coenzyme. And what are coenzymes? Coenzymes are organic molecules or organic compounds, okay, that can attach to the active site of the protein, or the enzyme, active site of the enzyme. Okay, and it is very important for the catalysis of the enzyme. All right. Another type of carriers are electron carriers. Example is cytochrome B and cytochrome A3. So this is cytochrome, which are involved in the electron transfer during the electron transport chain. And ubiquinone, what is unique about ubiquinone? Ubiquinone is both hydrogen as well as electron carrier. So let's study the electron transport system in detail now. So electron transport system consists of 4 complexes which are present in the inner mitochondrial membrane. Okay, they are present in the inner mitochondrial membrane. So here in this figure, okay, this figure you can see, this is the inner mitochondrial membrane. Okay, this is the inner mitochondrial membrane. This side is the matrix. Okay, and this is the intermembrane space. This region is the intermembrane space. All right. So what are the name of the 4 complexes? First one is the complex 1, which is NADH dehydrogenase. Next is complex 2, which is succinate dehydrogenase. All right. This enzyme or this complex is connected to the Krebs cycle. Okay. This is connected to the Krebs cycle. Okay. And it's help in the conversion of succinate to fumarate. Complex 3 is cytochrome BC1 and complex 4 is cytochrome C oxidase. So in this figure you can see this is the complex 1, okay, which is NADH dehydrogenase. Okay, it consists of FMN and okay, and it is associated with the iron sulfur protein. Okay, then we have the complex 2. So complex 2 is succinate dehydrogenase. So this enzyme is directly linked with the Krebs cycle, or you can say this enzyme is directly linked from the Krebs cycle to the electron transport chain. So what this enzyme do? It converts succinate to fumarate during the Krebs cycle. All right. Next is the complex 3, which is known as cytochrome BC1. Alright. And then we have the complex 4, which is known as cytochrome C oxidase. Here you can see this is the terminal oxidation. Okay, leading to the generation of water. Okay. And then we have the complex 5. Okay, this is also known as or sometimes called as complex 5. All right. The complex 5 name is ATP synthase and it is involved in the generation of ATP. Okay. So now you can see there is a transfer of electrons. Okay. So these are the protein complexes and all these are the electron carriers and okay, electron carriers, okay, as well as hydrogen carriers. All right, so these complexes act as the electron and hydrogen carriers, and you can see what is happening. Electrons are transferred here or transported, okay, from NADH, okay, from NADH, which is present at the complex 1, electrons are released from here. This is a reduced coenzyme. This is oxidized in the electron transport chain. Electrons are released, okay, and then they travel downhill. Okay, so they are traveling downhill. And what happens when they travel downhill? protons are transported from the matrix to the intermembrane space. Protons are transported from the matrix to the intermembrane space. To the intermembrane space. You can see there is accumulation of hydrogen and ions here. Initially, hydrogen ion concentration was very high in the matrix. So hydrogen ions were present here in the matrix. So these hydrogen ions are these hydrogen ions are transported to the intermembrane space as the electrons flow downhill in the electron transport chain, and proton gradient is created across the inner membrane. Alright. Now let's study about the each complex of ETC, electron transport chain, in detail. So first complex is NADH dehydrogenase. Alright. So what is NADH dehydrogenase? It consists of a flavoprotein called FMN. Alright. So this is FMN. And it is known as the ferredoxin mononucleotide, which is associated with the iron sulfur protein. So what happens at complex 1? Electrons from the reduced coenzyme NADH, which is produced in the mitochondrial matrix. So this NADH is produced where? In the mitochondrial matrix during the Krebs cycle. So this NADH is oxidized. This is oxidized. Electrons are released. And it is accepted by FMN, which is a component of the NADH. And further, what happens from NADH? From NADH, electrons are transferred to ubiquinone. From here, electron will travel, and it reaches where? It reaches ubiquinone, UQ, and from ubiquinone, the electrons are transferred finally to the ubiquinol. What is ubiquinol? It is just a reduced ubiquinone, or you can say reduction product of ubiquinone. You can also see there is simultaneous transfer of the hydrogen ion. So hydrogen ion were initially present here. There was high concentration of hydrogen ions here. If there is high concentration of hydrogen ion, pH will be low here. So these hydrogen ions are also transferred to the intermembrane space. This is intermembrane space. This is the inner membrane, inner mitochondrial membrane. This is again the matrix. Alright, hydrogen ions are also transported from the matrix to the intermembrane space. Now let's talk about the complex 2, which is succinate dehydrogenase. So what does this enzyme do? This converts succinate to fumarate during the Krebs cycle. And this complex consists of FAD. This complex consists of FAD, which is known as ferredoxin adenine dinucleotide, and it is also associated with the iron sulfur protein. So what does this complex do? This complex transfer or transport the electron from the succinate. Electrons from succinate to ubiquinone. Alright, here. Through this, it will follow this method and it will transfer the electron finally to ubiquinone. Ubiquinone will finally again transfer the electrons to ubiquinol. Alright. So let's talk about the complex 3 now. Complex 3 is known as the cytochrome BC1. All right, why? Because we have the cytochrome B here, and this is cytochrome C1. All right. So this complex receives the electron from ubiquinol. Okay. So this is ubiquinol. This one and this one, both of them are ubiquinol. Okay, this is also ubiquinol. Okay. Now, this complex receives the electron from ubiquinol and transfer it to cytochrome C. Okay, this is cytochrome C. So what is happening here? Electrons from the ubiquinol first are transferred to cytochrome B. Okay, first it is transferred to cytochrome B, and then from cytochrome B it is transferred to cytochrome C1. Okay, and finally from cytochrome C it is transferred to cytochrome C. Okay, now cytochrome C is a mobile element. Okay, cytochrome C can move. Okay, it is a, first of all, it is a small protein which can move, and it is a mobile element. And what does it do? It transfer the electrons, okay, or it connects, you can say, transfer the electrons between complex 3 and complex 4. Okay, or you can say it connects. All right. So next complex is cytochrome C oxidase. So what happens? It consists of cytochrome A and cytochrome A3. It consists of two cytochromes, cytochrome A, and then we have cytochrome A3. Okay, and it consists of two copper centers. Okay, one copper center is this one, another copper center is this one. Okay, so this complex receives electron from the cytochrome C, okay, which connects complex 3 and complex 4 and passes the electrons to the molecular oxygen. So it transfers the electrons finally to the molecular oxygen, all right, and water is generated during this process. And what is happening? Hydrogen ions are also transported from the matrix to the intermembrane space. Okay, this is intermembrane space. This is again inner mitochondrial membrane. Inner mitochondrial membrane. Okay. Now, in the end, we have the ATP synthase, which is also referred to as complex 5. So let's talk about the structure of this ATP synthase first. All right. So ATP synthase consists of two parts. Okay. First is the basal part known as the F0. Okay. Part. This is known as the, and F0 part is embedded in the membrane. Okay, so this part is of ATP synthase is embedded in the membrane. Okay, so it is a transmembrane ion channel. Okay, so it acts as a channel through which the protons flow back to the matrix. Okay, protons flow back to the matrix from the intermembrane space. So we know that there was accumulation of protons due to downhill transfer of electrons in the intermembrane space. So there were a lot of protons here. Okay. This is the mitochondrial membrane, inner mitochondrial membrane. Okay. So F0 is a transmembrane. It acts as a transmembrane ion channel through which protons move back to the mitochondrial matrix from the intermembrane space, and it generates energy for the synthesis of ATP. Alright, so protons are, okay, they move back to the matrix, okay, and in this process ATP is generated from ADP and inorganic phosphate. Now let's talk about the F1 part of the ATP synthase. So F1 part is known as the headpiece. Alright, so this part is known as the headpiece. It is a peripheral membrane protein. It is a peripheral membrane protein. Alright, and it protrudes out from the membrane. So what is special about F1? It consists of the catalytic site. Okay, it consists of the catalytic site which is involved in the ATP synthesis. And what happens when the protons, they move back to the matrix? What happens? There is a conformation change, okay, or you can say there is a mechanical rotation in the F1 component of ATP synthase. All right, there is a conformation change in the F1 part of the ATP synthase as the protons move back to the matrix, and this conformation change, okay, creates a energy, and this energy is utilized for the generation of ATP. Okay, so this is how ATP is produced. Okay, and this theory is known as, or this hypothesis is known as chemiosmotic hypothesis, and this phenomena is known as chemiosmosis. Okay, so chemiosmosis is generation of ATP by the breakdown of the proton gradient. Alright, so this theory was given by Peter Michel. Now let's talk about the terminal oxidation. We already know that it is the final step in the process of electron transport chain. Okay, this process involves the electron transport through a series of protein complexes that finally deliver the electron to the molecular oxygen, and this results in the formation of water. So this is the reaction: molecular oxygen accepts electrons and protons, and water is produced. Alright. Now next term, I will introduce you to this term. This is known as the amphibolic pathway. So respiration is, or the respiratory pathway is known as the amphibolic pathway. Alright. So respiration, okay, we usually think of respiration as a catabolic process. Okay, and this is also a feature of respiration. Catabolism means formation of simpler compounds or simple molecules. Okay, from simple molecules are formed from complex molecules. This is known as catabolic process. Alright, so catabolism is breaking down complex molecules to generate ATP, okay, or you can say breaking down of complex molecule to simpler molecules to generate ATP. Anabolism, okay, anabolism is formation of complex compound from simple compound. Simple compounds combine to form complex compounds, and these compounds, okay, they act as intermediates for lot of biosynthetic pathways. Okay, so what does amphibolic pathway means? It means that both anabolism and catabolism is involved in the pathway. So let's see how respiration is an amphibolic pathway. So this is another okay, thing to remember that respiration is interconnected with various metabolic pathway. First, you have to remember that respiration is not a single process, but it is interconnected to other pathways as well. All right. Now, what happens? The product of glycolysis and the citric acid, what they do? They enter the various pathways, okay, playing a role in generating energy or forming essential compound for the cellular structure. So what does this mean? This means that the product of glycolysis, such as pyruvic acid, okay, and the products of or the intermediates of the citric acid cycle, okay, these are also involved in generating energy rich compounds, okay. Why and how they can produce energy rich compound? Because respiration is interconnected to other pathways as well, okay, such as lipid synthesis, okay, all right, and some other pathways also, as maybe protein synthesis also, okay. So this is a flowchart showing the amphibolic pathway, okay, of respiration. All right. So now you can see respiratory substrate. We have already known that respiratory substrate is a substance which is oxidized during respiration. So fats can be used, carbohydrates are generally used, and protein can also be used as a respiratory substrate. Now what happens? Fats are converted first into fatty acids, okay, or it can be converted into glycerol. So this fatty acid is directly converted into acetyl coenzyme A, okay, and acetyl coenzyme A can enter the Krebs cycle. All right, so this is catabolic process. Okay, there is breakdown of larger molecule into simpler one. Again, carbohydrates, okay, is converted into glucose. All right, and glucose will follow glycolysis pathway, okay. And after glycolysis, what is the end product? Pyruvic acid. All right, and pyruvic acid undergo oxidative decarboxylation, okay, and results in the formation of acetyl coenzyme A, which can again enter the Krebs cycle. Okay, similarly, proteins are broken down into amino acids. Okay, amino acids are converted into pyruvic acid and then acetyl coenzyme A, and then acetyl coenzyme A will enter the Krebs cycle. So all these are catabolic process. Okay. Now, what happens depending on the requirement of the organism? What can happen? Fatty acid can again, okay, exit the respiratory pathway and it can again synthesize fats. Similarly here also, and amino acid can again, okay, synthesize proteins. Okay, so from simpler molecules or compound, a complex molecule is being synthesized depending upon the requirement of the organism. Okay, so this process is anabolism or anabolic pathway. Alright, so now you can see respiration is consist of both catabolic pathway as well as anabolic pathway, and depending on the need of the organism, okay, the molecules can switch. Okay, either they can enter the respiratory pathway or they can follow the anabolic pathway. All right, so that's why respiration is called as the amphibolic pathway. Okay, now let's talk about the acetyl coenzyme A. Okay, we know that acetyl coenzyme is a central molecule in respiration. Now everything which is produced is finally converted into acetyl coenzyme A. Alright, and acetyl coenzyme A can finally enter the Krebs cycle. So what does acetyl coenzyme do? It connects carbohydrate, lipid and amino acid metabolism. It enters the citric acid cycle and contributes to the production of ATP as well as formation of intermediates for biosynthesis of lot of organic compounds. Now, what is the significance of this amphibolic pathway? Okay, so respiration is an respiration's amphibolic nature, means the amphibolic nature of the respiration allows the cell to adapt, okay, to different metabolic needs. So according to the requirement of the organism, either it can follow the catabolic pathway or it can follow the anabolic pathway. So when the energy demands are high, then what will happen? Respiration will be favored. Okay, respiration is the primary focus for energy production. While under surplus conditions, what will happen? Biosynthesis will be favored, means anabolic pathway will be favored. All right. Now let's talk about the respiratory quotient. So what is the definition of respiratory quotient? It is the ratio of volume of carbon dioxide released, or you can say evolved, to the volume of the carbon dioxide consumed. So oxygen evolved during respiration, okay, by oxygen consumed during respiration. Okay, now the value of the respiratory quotient depends on the nature of the substrate. So if the substrate is carbohydrate and we are talking about aerobic respiration, so what happens? Oxygen is used in aerobic respiration, carbon dioxide is produced. All right, so glucose is a carbohydrate molecule. Okay, so now 6 carbon dioxide is evolved and 6 oxygen is consumed. So RQ value will be 1 here for the carbohydrate that are undergoing aerobic respiration. Whereas for carbohydrate that are following the anaerobic respiration, what happens? Again, glucose molecule, no oxygen is utilized here. Okay, but carbon dioxide is produced. Okay, ethanol is produced, energy is released. RQ value will be 2 divided by 0, which is infinity. Okay. Now, if we talk about protein, the RQ value is around 0.9, whereas the RQ value for fats is around 0.7. Okay, fats, what they do? Fats need more oxygen. Okay, they need more oxygen, okay, for their breakdown. All right, so for proteins and fat, the RQ value is less than unity because for both of them, more oxygen is required. Okay, so here is an example of a fat. This is tripalmitic acid. This is a, you can say, fat molecule, or you can write this as tripalmitic acid. Okay, so here what is happening? It is using a large amount of oxygen. Carbon dioxide produced is less. So what will be the RQ value? 102 divided by 145, which is around 0.7. So for fats, RQ value is around 0.7. Okay. Now RQ value for organic acids. Okay, this you can just remember that RQ value for organic acid is generally greater than unity, means greater than 1. All right. So this is the end of this topic, respiration in plants. Hope you enjoyed the lecture and we'll meet again in the next session. Thank you very much.